Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next up is Chief Cordell to present information regarding school resource officer.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chief Cordell. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the school resource officers and go over the background. So the Burleson Police Department, in partnership with BISD, we meet and evaluate our safety plans for students and staff annually. I presented to you the first part of June, and at that point we just had not had that meeting to be able to discuss those issues. So coming back to you now. This year, just a couple things. BISD's implemented an additional security position as part of their security team to help review school safety. As far as the budget request, a result of the discussions that we've had recently, both BPD and BISD are requesting 3 additional school resource officers to rotate between schools. I would say this is the beginning of a conversation and certainly not the end. I want to emphasize that this is part of standard protocol that we do every year at the end of the year, is evaluate our security and improvements that we can make. So this is the first part of the conversation. Our focus is to improve, as all of us, the overall response and safety of all of our campuses and the students, teachers, and staff that attend those campuses. I will point out one of the things that we're struggling with now is the ability to hire new police officers. I'll give you an example. We recently gave a test for an applications, and we received 22 applications. Out of that, 11 people showed up to take the test, and we had 7 that passed the test. So any new positions that we're getting this year, we've already posted to give another test, but we're trying to get out of 7 positions, and I think that's consistent wherever you are. I noticed that there were a number of different agencies that were advertising for officer positions on social media, but that is a challenge for us. So looking at the current structure, we have 2 SROs, or school resource officers, have 2 SROs in each of our high schools for a total of 4. We have 1 officer at each of the middle schools for a total of 4. So we have 8 total in our secondary schools, and 1 of those includes a supervisor to oversee that group. The existing SRO budget on your screen, $707,955, which is the City of Burleson's portion. We do share that at 50% with BISD. So looking at individual SRO costs, the total cost, this includes the personnel, the benefits, vehicle and equipment, which are upfront. Significant cost is $246,117. Year 1 cost for City of Burleson is a little over $123,000, and then the reoccurring afterwards drops down to $72,878 for City of Burleson's portion. If you put the numbers together for the 3 additional, that is giving you the numbers for City of Burleson's portion there, just under 370, with a reoccurring of $218,635. So the next steps, BPD and BISD will continue to review school safety needs throughout the year. Again, this is a reminder, it's the beginning of the conversation, not the end of a conversation. I also would remind council that approved on the consent agenda this evening was the feasibility study with Matrix Consulting to go out and look at the staffing models for BPD, which will include our school resource staffing. And we may identify additional staffing within that. I would point out some excellent things with what we've done in the past, BISD and BPD. There's a safety committee for the school that evaluates safety every year, and the Texas School Safety Center every 3 years requests a survey of our schools. There's 1,022 public school districts in the state of Texas. They recently completed that over the last school year, and out of the 1,022, the safety plan for having an emergency action plan, BISD was one of 67 school districts that had a sufficient plan. Also in that, they evaluate an active shooter plan, and they were one of 200 out of the 1,022 school districts that had what was deemed as a viable plan. Again, we certainly have a compassion and concern for our school districts and the safety of those. Just kind of give you an idea, and I think that's all of my slides, yes. Give you an idea, we've got 10 elementary schools within BISD. One of those schools, Brock, is located within the city limits of Fort Worth. Then we have Collegiate and Crossroads, that none of those districts have any school resource officers assigned permanently to them. So putting 3 in there gives us an ability to divide the schools up to be able to get overlap coverage of them. We also looked at mapping the area with the number of schools in that and consider response time. We're still developing that out as to how we would group the schools that these 3 SROs would serve, so that we can give us the lowest response times to get to the school if we're not in those schools. And again, Brock is, I think it's 13,000 Oak Grove is the address. It's just north of 1187 on Oak Grove. And we would recommend that we also put that in the rotation as one of these positions. So with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Chief, I know schools they often don't want to, but I know they can set up their own school security forces. With us, I know we split the cost 50-50, but they get the officer 75% of the time plus equipment. They would be able to provide more security at probably the same or lower cost if they took it on themselves. I don't know that they want to do that. I don't know where my question's going with this, but if you can elaborate, hopefully you kind of see the direction I'm asking here and whether or not they'd be willing to take on their own security force. They wouldn't necessarily need vehicles even as much as what we would need, because we'd be driving from location to location, and they wouldn't necessarily have to have a fully commissioned peace officer. They could use uniformed security and that kind of thing. So there is some cost savings they could do with being able to provide a higher level of a higher number, rather, of individuals at the schools. So could you elaborate a little bit on where I'm going, or did I lose you?
I'm going to try.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things we do very well is stay in our lane, so I don't want to speak on behalf of Dr. Jimerson and the school district with what they want to do. I can tell you in past conversations they're pleased with the direction that we are, and I don't anticipate any reason that they're going to want to change that. As we add to and the costs go up, that may be a consideration for the future, but that's a BISD decision.
So, Chief, this is absolutely not, and I had no idea you were going to talk about this, but this has nothing to do with the quality of your department, but I do want to bring up same concern as a city on the area that we can actually look at. So we have Burleson residents whose kids, or they live in the Joshua ISD side of town. They pay Joshua ISD school taxes, which actually fund their own police department. Mm-hmm. Joshua has their own police department, and they're a much smaller town than we are. Now, we're also asking those same residents to take a portion of their property taxes now to fund our own police department being in our Burleson ISD. This is, again, not at you as a statement. To fund being in our schools. We're double dinging them for schools when Burleson ISD has the highest tax rate in Johnson County and is in the top 5 tax rates for Tarrant County, which has 20-something cities in it. And yet, we as a city are now supplementing our school district, asking residents to pay for their taxes to go to 2 different school districts, because we're pulling out a portion of this. I think we as a city at some point should be considering pushing back on our ISD and talking to them and saying, when is it time for them to bring on their own police department? Joshua is not the only ones to do it. There is a lot more, I guess, things that they can do. Like you said, they don't have to be actual police officers. Given your strain on getting and keeping qualified people to even get through the training academy, we know we had several didn't make it. I feel like this is a strain on you and our department, and you may not say that, but I believe that we as a city should be cognizant of what we're actually doing to our citizens by continuing to supplement this, our police department needs for our school district that has the highest school tax rate in the county, and then taking the Tarrant County side of it. And this is something we should, as a city, should be talking to our school board about. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to affect this. I believe we need to secure and safety these schools. But there's no way, and it's next year, there's going to be a need for 2 more SROs and another 2 more, and another 2 more. And now we're funding, it may come out to 50%, but how much time are these people actually spending in the schools? We only pay 50% of it, but we don't have them, 50% of the time. So there's negatives and positives, and I'm sure my counterpart over here is going to share the negatives, but I believe that we as a city council and as a city should be talking about this now to implement sometime in the future.
Okay.
To me, it's reasonably simple. Number one, they're not going to go for their own department. That's not going to happen. They're not going to say, oh yeah, we're going to formulate our own police deal. Mansfield, yes, they've got 30,000 kids. Yes, they have their own police department. We don't. We've got about 14,000. Now, we're talking about our kids now. I don't care where they live. They're still our kids. They're in our schoolhouses, so you're damn right we need to protect them. Now, I don't care about the friggin' money on this one. You won't hear me say that very often. But this is one time, I never dreamed that there would be any interference with this at all. The SRO officers, we need them. And I, Chief, am 100% for it.
And I agree, Ronnie. We've got to get people in the
Didn't
schools.
sound like
Now,
you
there's
were.
no way that the chief can have an officer in every single school 24/7, but the school district can. And I want our kids protected. It's up to us to push back the school district. No, they're not going to do their own police department when we're sitting there giving them something for basically free. They're only paying 50%, and yet they get to have our officers for 75% of the time. Why would they do that? We've got to be smart. We need to protect our kids, and the way to protect our kids is push back the schools and make them have somebody at the schools. We don't have enough officers to put one in each school every single time they're open. The school district can. So I want to protect our kids.
I'm not so sure where you're coming from.
I know you're not.
School district can't.
Yeah.
How are they going to run it?
Well, they've been doing it
The
for
same
years.
way that TCU, the same way that Mansfield, the same way that every school district does.
TCC.
There are training academies. They can hire, they don't have to hire peace officers. They can hire armed securities that can be very well trained. You mean to tell me TCU police are not good people? Mansfield police are not good? Those school
I didn't
districts
say
have
they
very
weren't.
good. They have very good security teams, and they take very good care of their people. Our department does a dang good job. Chief's men do a dang good job, but they can't be everywhere at once. And even if we put 2 or 3 people at Centennial, that's not enough. That's never enough. The size of the Centennial's campus needs more than 2 or 3. It needs a lot more than that.
For me, I'm not saying no to this right now. I'm saying this is a conversation I would like to bring to light and to have moving forward. I absolutely don't. I want these new SROs floating, but I'm going to tell, again, expressing for me as a council member and as someone who represents our city, and I'm listening to citizens. By the way, this was from citizens. This was not, I didn't even think about this. I had several citizens contact me saying, hey, I'm paying Joshua City school taxes, and now this is also, and now we're going to add more to coming out of my property taxes. So essentially, I'm getting double dinged on the school districts and supporting our school districts with my general fund money. And we are a growing city. This is a part of the things that we should be looking at in giving back to the people who can afford it. Our school district, they can figure out the money on their own. I'm sure they can. They're the highest school taxes in the county, number 5 out of 20-something cities in Tarrant County. That's insane. They need to figure out how they can pay for their own police department. We should be thinking about this. I didn't think about it, and then I went, wow, and I went and did the research, and I looked it up, and I said, yeah. And it's nothing against the school district, But it's just like when you keep give and give and give, they're going to keep taking and taking and taking. At some point, you've got to say, okay, we realize we need officers in more of these schools, and how much more can we drain our own police department, drain our resources there, when he's already struggling to hire enough police officers?
If all this be the case, we most certainly, Chief, need to have a discussion with the school district itself. We don't need to be firing out here with at least having them come in and say, this is the reason we can or can't. And I mean, there was something here that was said. I wasn't know what, are you saying that Joshua's ISD has its own police district?
Yes, I'm looking at it right here. Yeah. Go to there.
They do have their own.
Okay, I
Yes,
didn't know
they
that.
went there about 2 years ago, I believe it was, because they had a partnership with Johnson County, and
Oh, okay.
there were some changes in the structure there, so they formed their own.
Well, let's have the conversation with the ISD.
Yes, of course.
They at least, they need to be in on this before I don't want to make demands on them. I'm more than willing to bring them in, but I'm going to tell y'all, bottom line for me is, I know the kids come first. The kids come first. They come before the city, I'll even say that. That's our kids. So whatever we need to do money-wise is not going to be a problem with me. I'm not going to make that judgment based on money.
Okay, and nobody's doubting that, Ronnie. I promise you, nobody in this room is doubting the safety of our kids. But we have a financial responsibility. Could you get back with us on this? Could you come back and give another presentation? Well, this is
The
kind
direction
of
of the city
time-sensitive
manager,
thing.
absolutely.
Well, yeah, I was trying to say it nicely, okay. But yeah, if you could come back, possibly get with Brian and figure out, would you like to be in the room to?
Yeah, and I will tell you this, Chief, we shouldn't put this on you. We need to personally talk to their school board and their school system too. We need to have that meeting, whether it be here or at the room over, the trustees' room. But let's have it with them. Let's don't put this on the chief.
Yeah,
I agree.
I completely agree. It's really
I agree too.
This is,
Not really the chief's
he's like, wait a minute, I don't want to get in between the two of you.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. You got a little bit of direction here?
I just wanted to add a couple of comments before we get away from the subject. Crime committed within the city is crime to the city, and it's crime to all people. I believe that crime prevention efforts in any police agency should be directed towards preventing crime to those most vulnerable and analyzing and assessing risks and applying the forces where they can be most effective. And I'd also add a parenthetical comment that should there, God forbid, ever be an active incident at one of our schools, our department will be instantly there. It's just going to be a matter of who made the damn phone call. And as far as I'm concerned, if that's one of our guys on the inside, all the better. That makes that much more efficient response. It didn't work out in Uvalde having their own police department within the school district. And I hate to throw them out as an example, but that's obviously behind this discussion to a large extent. So I support the chief's efforts, and I think, though, in between you two guys, which I'm ducking the bullets being thrown at each other, I think any discussion of the responsibility for the financial impact of this is worth having. But I think the officers on the school campuses should be our officers and a part of our Burleson Police Department. So.
And I agree that officers need to be on the campus. My concern is that the chief doesn't have the resources to put one at each school. And I know we'll get there quick. I know the chief's officers will get there very quickly and do what they can, but also know that the rate of fire is very quick, and unfortunately, lives will be lost before they show up. And that's not a knock on the chief. That's just the fact of it takes time to get from one place to another. And I'd love to see armed people in each one of the schools is what I want to see. I don't think the chief has the resources or even the ability to be able to find quality applicants to be able to fill that role.
So I'm really kind of hearing it's just the financial side of this. We know what we want for the kids, but we're trying to decide the financial side of it. And I agree with Tamara, you know, that the school tax is up there. Money is probably not available, but that's not on us all the way. You know, you still got a job. I'm proud of our police department. What y'all did the last few weekends ago was just another stone in your crown there. I really do appreciate that. But we do have to watch the money. But whatever's best for the kids, we know that.
Well, I think from a timing perspective, my recommended budget is going to include the 3 additional SROs.
Yes.
So that would be effective October 1 of this coming fiscal year. We can certainly have additional conversations with the school district. I think if you'd like to have a joint meeting with that board or hear from the superintendent to come present to you, we can certainly arrange to do that. Again, I don't, like Billy, I don't want to speak for the school district, but I think they're very comfortable with our capabilities, and they look at the professionalism of the department, the responses, and I think that's the primary driver. It's not my understanding, it's not a cost issue for them, but it's trying to make sure they have good quality personnel. But I can bring them in and have them deliver that message to you so you can have that discussion with them directly. But this is new. It was different than what Chief Cordell had presented just a couple of weeks ago, so we wanted to make sure we got this out on the table for you, and I think based on the discussion, I'm glad I did, so that's great.
One clarification on the hiring. That's what we experienced this time, and we know there were several others that had vacancy announcements from police agencies around us, so that probably watered that down. I want to make sure I'm clear. It doesn't mean we won't be able to hire folks in the future, but I do want to also point out that what we have done in the past with our SROs is we try to fill those positions very quickly because of the shared cost in that. I don't know that we'll be able to do that. We've had discussions with BISD about the timing to be able to fill those. As you know, it takes us about the time we post the tests and we get them through, if everything goes well and get them on the street where they would be able to go solo status and answer calls on their own, you're almost at a year. I don't have any belief that if we approve this in October that we would be able to staff that immediately. We're still trying to stand up our power shift team that you approved 2 years ago, and we've delayed that when we add SROs and other things. So we're really prioritizing that, not downsizing the importance of the schools, but to be able to get through there. We still have the city that we have to manage as well. So just wanted to make a clarification on that.
Does the SRO go through the same training as our other officers?
Yes, sir. They are a full BPD officer. That's just an assignment, like if they were assigned to motors or other areas within the department. Yes, sir.
Is there a specific training for SROs we could go through that would?
Great question, and yes, sir, they have specific training relevant to the schools that we send into. I can't remember the exact, it's either 40 or 80 hours that they go, but I don't remember for sure.
There's a quicker turnaround on that?
There's a quick turnaround on that. That's after they get through the completed training to become an officer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I will tell you that the school district has, probably in the last, Chief, you probably know it, they've created a safety director. They've never had that before, and this came up about a month or less ago. So they do have a safety officer.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry to throw you for a loop there.
And now back to the Martin show.